Good evening and welcome to a Law Matters podcast with a good friend of mine, Martin Curtis Powell. This evening, we're going to be talking about grief and how to handle loss and what are the different steps that you need to take to be able to deal with such a difficult issue. In fact, what I think is something that we don't talk about enough. So tonight, we're going to be talking about it with my good friend Martin Curtis Powell. Let me bring him to the front. Curtis, how are you doing this evening?
My brother from another mother. How you doing, my friend? It's good to see you. It's good to see you tonight.
So glad to be with you on this evening and we get a chance to discuss a sensitive but important topic. Um,
Sure.
Before we get started, tell our audience a little bit about yourself. I see you wearing that University of Miami polo shirt. So tell us how that's connected to what you do and what you're going to be talking about tonight.
Yes, thank you very much. I do work for U Health. I'm the director of spiritual care services. So I oversee all the spiritual care for our patients, patient family, staff support. That's my current role. Before that, I worked in a few hospital systems, Broward Health, Baptist Health. I've also did some work with end of life care with Vitas Hospice. And before I went to healthcare, I pastored for about 18 years. So all that combination of pastoral ministry, of hospital ministry. I also serve in the military as in the reservists as a chaplain. So all those kind of work together to inform what I do in this space of grief and loss.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you also have a PhD, so we definitely call you Dr. Martin Curtis Powell.
Let me not get in trouble with the academic community. So I have a doctoral ministry degree, so it's a little
There
different
you
from PhD, but it's earned. It was not ordered, so that's why I tell people.
go. And it was not gifted upon you either. You didn't get an honorary one. You worked for that. You worked for that.
For that, for sure.
Now you've given us a little bit of your academic and experiential background in terms of your career field, but I think we're talking about a topic tonight that has some personal relevance to you as well. Can you talk to us about that?
For sure. So a good friend of mine introduced me to a specialized training that I went through. This is on the heels of the pandemic. And personally, my family we had several losses, sequential losses. I lost some uncles, aunts, uh, cousins. It was like every few months there was someone that was dying. And it was very triggering for me because my father died years earlier, 2009. Um, he died from multiple myeloma, but I never really was able to process my losses.
Hmm.
And my colleague referenced me to a specific training that I went through that kind of helped me as a participant, how to process my loss, how to grieve, and then also helped me as I became a facilitator to lead groups that I lead groups and I lead small groups, I do individual sessions to help people process their losses. And that's kind of the genesis behind all this work that I do in this specific area.
And for me, I have to say that the losses that I've experienced in my life in terms of losing my mother-in-law to multiple myeloma as well. And we leaned on, when I say we, my family and I leaned on you for not just your love and support, but your experience in this area. In fact, my wife went through the actual grief. What would you call it? That you do the grief
Yeah.
seminar? I
So,
don't know if that's the proper
yeah,
word.
my process. My label is a grief recovery specialist. So we use a method. It's an 8 week closed group, and your wife was a participant in the early stages. I'm so thankful and grateful for her story, for her
Mhm.
sharing, and she really added a great dynamic to the group process of healing and moving forward in a very difficult loss for sure.
No, why did you think it was important for us to get online tonight and talk about this topic live? Why is it so important for us to discuss this?
So let me answer that two ways. Number one, uh, for those who don't know, we talked about this a long time ago. Me and you talked about this. That's number
Okay.
one. And we never got off the ground. Okay. Number two, I think our culture, our society, we are so focused on celebration,
Hmm.
on health. on wellness, on I mean, South Florida is like full of cosmetic surgery, people trying to look young and feel young. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, life is not like that. All right. Life is involves both joy and sorrow. And part of my work is that people deal with the sorrow aspects. And
Mhm.
thirdly, uh, the school you and I both went to for high school in Forest Lake Academy in Orlando, a tragic loss took place where a young student lost his life. And that was kind of the catalyst as I had a few people reaching out to me. I said, let's just do it now. Let's get online. Let's have a discussion. No, we can't solve every problem tonight, but at least we can have a discussion and maybe get some
Mhm.
things generated for down the road.
Okay, the first question I want to ask you, specifically in this area, is what is one of the biggest misconceptions about grief?
Yeah, that's so. Let me share with you a few of them because I don't know if there's a single misconception. Let me share with you a few, okay, that I've discovered in my journey. Number one, um, grief is not a one size fits all. So everyone's grief story and grief journey is different, okay?
Mhm.
And having someone that I've talked to and they tell me, hey, I lost my father. And I say, well, I lost my father too. That doesn't mean our grief story is the same, okay? Because grief really is based on the nature and the tenor of the relationship. So that's number one. Grief is not a one size fits all. Another misconception I think that people experience when they go through grief is this: if I give it time, grief
Mhm.
will take care of, will heal on its own. Uh, that's not always a good strategy. I tell people, if you have a flat tire and you say, I want to give it time, what's going to happen? That tire is going to stay flat. So we have
Mhm.
to do something in the meantime to really um, help us process, I use that word a lot, process our loss in a way that's healthy, that's safe, and that can help us really find some healing. So time, you hear the saying, "Oh, time heals all wounds."
I was
Well,
about to
that's
say the same thing.
that's,
Of course.
that's actually true. So the third one, Sean, I hear a lot, especially in hospital settings, where there may be someone that's crying or they're emoting, and people want to like get Kleenex and feel want you to feel good right away. Like stop crying. Like we want to suppress those emotions,
Mhm.
dude. That's like the worst thing we can do. Let people cry. Like let people emote. That's healthy. When we're emoting, when we feel sad and we're expressing ourselves, that is one of the great things we can do. On the flip side, if we suppress our emotions, if we put everything down in the can, that's not helpful and that's not healthy at all. Those are a few misconceptions.
I want to go back to that common saying, "Time heals all wounds," as you said. If that is the misconception that time heals all wounds, then what is the proper perspective of how we deal with time as it relates to grief and loss?
So here's what I tell people. It's not that time heals wounds. It's what you do with the time that you have.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if I'm doing something in the interim, if I'm attending a small group, if I am what I say reading myself well, if I get some books and kind of help me read myself through grief, if I'm connecting with community in my loss, if I'm able to put words to my emotions to really describe what I feel, all those things are helpful to lead you toward the journey of healing and restoration. But just sitting in that space of sorrow and pain, looking at your clock, not much will change.
Well, how does therapy help? What does it do to ease or to help me deal with grief and loss specifically?
So number one, when people enter my space, Sean, I tell them, listen, I say, listen, number one, we're not going to fix all your problems. That's
Mhm.
that, I'm not Jesus, okay? Um, Number two, grief work is not easy work because you're confronting painful and disturbing emotions and feelings based on the grief that we're focusing on. And I tell people grief work is like, let me use this metaphor. Let's say we're going hiking, right? And I give you a backpack, and the backpack has 100 pounds of supplies in that backpack. And we're going to the summit of this mountain. When you get support or help, it doesn't remove the mountain, but it does take some of that weight off the backpack. So as opposed to carrying 100 pounds, now I'm carrying 25. And that the journey is less tenuous. The journey is less strenuous. I'm still climbing the mountain, right? Like I still miss my father who I grieve. I still have love for him in my heart, you know? But some of the weight that I was carrying years ago, because I went to therapy, I got some help. I went through a group process. Now the weight I carry is not as heavy as it was 8 or 9 years ago. And that's kind of for me, a good metaphor of therapy and counseling.
I've heard you also talk about something called anticipatory grief. And is that a real thing, anticipatory grief, and what does that deal with?
So that word anticipatory, when you're anticipating something, you're looking for something to happen. And this happens a lot when people are dealing with like a long-term illness. So let me give a personal example. So my dad's mom, my grandmother, we called her Big Mom affectionately. Big Mom was diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's. Okay, so that disease changed her mind, changed her processing, changed who she recognized. Right? She would have what they call sundowners in the evening. She would kind of lash out or get very combative. So the grief process began before she died.
Yeah.
We knew she wasn't going to get better. She was on this downward trajectory. So the grief was very real and very palpable. Although I was young now, I was young when she passed. Because I'm an adult, I've done some work. I can look back and put words what I was feeling when she was going through that process. Looking at my parents, how they processed that. How their emotions, their sadness, because the woman they knew was almost like she was missing. She was no longer there. And although she had not died in the physical sense, her personality, it was becoming diminished every week. So that's one example of anticipatory grief, when you're kind of expecting something to happen and you're grieving before the finality of a death of a loved one. And that happens in the hospital a lot with people on hospice care, terminal illnesses. You see that a lot as well.
Definitely makes a lot of sense. Now, some of the typical emotions we see during grief are tears, sadness, anxiety, depression. But what are some unexpected emotions people have or might emote during grief?
So that's a very challenging question, because there's such a wide array of emotions that can come at you. So as opposed to naming the emotions, I think what's most surprising is when the emotions come.
Okay.
So people have said grief for many people is like, and we both live in Florida, so we've gone to the ocean, we've seen the waves come in, right? And if you sat on the shore, you can feel the waves wash over you.
Yes.
Grief is like that. But the waves are very unpredictable. You can ride in your car, going to work, and then a song comes on, reminds you of that loved one of that loss, and all of a sudden the tears start coming. It could be sadness, it could be guilt, it could be anger, it could be fear, whatever that emotion is, it's now hitting you and you didn't see it coming. And for many people, Sean, that's the most challenging part of grief, is this uncertainty, because it's so dynamic. It has like its own weather pattern, its own system, and we're just kind of trying to navigate it the best we can.
One of the things you talked about before is trying to get people out of whatever emotion that is, trying to make them feel happy when they're feeling sad, trying to get them to laugh when they're crying. I think oftentimes we try to do that because we feel that people cannot manage those emotions. But you counsel and give therapy, and you mentioned before, for us not to try to take them out of that emotion. So how does one handle staying in that emotion when it seems so unbearable?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think if you're walking with someone that's grieving, number one, you have to have a certain level of emotional intelligence to understand what's happening, because when you're supporting people in grief, you're not there to fix it. You're not there to solve it. You're there to journey with them. So you can validate their emotions and listen, I see the tears. Do you want to talk about it or not? It's okay. I can see you're really, really, whatever that emotion may be, I see you're angry or frustrated. And they may correct you. No, I'm not angry. It's this. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
you're there as a witness to validate that emotion. You're there to journey with them through the good days and the bad days, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not there to kind of fix it because we're not able to fix people. People have to find kind of their own healing. They have to journey toward wholeness. But when you journey with people, Sean, sometimes even in silence is powerful. And I think quickly the story of Job and his three friends, like
Mm-hmm.
when they weren't talking, they were good. Like that's when, once they begin talking like foolishness, things kind of went sideways. And if you, I tell people, if you don't know what to say, just offer your presence. Say, "Yo, I'm here with you. I don't know what to say right now because my words don't mean much, but I'm here with you. I'll sit with you. If you want to talk, I'm here to listen." That can be so helpful when people are grieving. Not trying to make them feel good and feel happy, but just journeying with them, I think is the best thing we can do.
Now, you and I both come from a faith-based foundation, and faith has been a part of our lives through education and even in our personal journey. And oftentimes, the faith-based culture can throw spiritual emojis out to people, spiritual sayings to people that may not always be appropriate. So, what is and is there an appropriate means that faith plays in grief and in loss to those who believe that faith is important to them?
So faith communities, can really provide great help for people that are grieving. They can also do great harm to people who are grieving. And one of the elements of harm you mentioned sometimes is using the quips or phrases or cliches like, oh, well, God won't give you
More
more
than
than you can handle. And that's not even a scripture verse in the Bible, you know. Or they may quote a scripture verse, and the verse is wonderful, but everything that is true is not helpful at that moment.
mm-hmm.
So, you and I are sad, we're grieving, and someone says to us, you know what, God is with you, they may quote a scripture verse. Weeping will endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning.
Yes, yes, yes.
But you're like, yo, right now I'm not feeling joy.
Uh-huh.
I'm I'm in the night right now. So that scripture verse, although it's meaningful to you, it's not helping you right now. You
Mm-hmm.
know. So if we're throwing little cliches, little scripture verses, that usually isn't very helpful as we would like to think it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to just apologize to all those I've said those to in the years past. I was misinformed, uneducated. But really, Sean, again, offering our presence is most important. Offering our time, our availability, help people with specific needs is much better than simply quoting a verse or,
Mm-hmm.
or throwing a cliche at them. It's not very helpful.
So, well, you bring up an interesting point, and I'm going to draw on your chaplain and your pastoral background. With that saying, weeping may endure for a night, and joy comes in the morning. Are you indicating that text is not, or I don't even know if it's a text now that I think about it. That phrase is not necessarily true, or it's just not necessarily appropriate at certain times.
Well, I think no, I'm not debating the validity of the text
Mm-hmm.
or its truth. My
Mm-hmm.
point is everything that is true is not helpful at that moment.
I see what you're saying.
So
Yeah.
that may not be most helpful at that moment. It may be great to be used in a sermon or eulogy, but if
Mm-hmm.
we're having one-to-one time, you're trying to comfort me, that might not scratch where I'm itching right now.
and that ties into another question we have. What is it can a loved one or friend do to support someone that's grieving? You mentioned being present. Is that it? Should I be like Job's friends on a regular basis and just sit with somebody as they're grieving? And if so, that is not easy to do. You kind of feel like, okay, somebody is scratching, I need to be itching them in some way, shape, or form.
So let me share with you a few principles. That's a great point of how we can help people when they're grieving. Number one, I think the most important thing is really to kind of stay out of a posture of either judging or comparing.
Mm-hmm.
So again, looking at losses, you lost, someone you lost, say you lost a mother-in-law, I lost a mother-in-law, I lost a dad, you lost a dad. So we try to bring our stories to that situation. Or when I
Mm-hmm.
lost my dad, this is what I did. But that
Right.
they'll do that right now. So not comparing the loss, staying out of judgment. Also, when people are grieving, Sean, they may want to emote and talk to you about what's happening. So we need to be people that can keep people's confidence and
Mm-hmm.
not post their stuff on platforms. Be a
Mm-hmm.
source of confidence. And I think what's helpful for faith communities is when they take initiative when people are grieving. So
Mm-hmm.
whether it is specific needs, like we're gonna have a food train that brings you food. We're gonna
Mm-hmm.
come by and wash your car. We're gonna make
Mm-hmm.
sure your kids are picked up from school because you don't feel like driving. So knowing
Mm-hmm.
those kind of felt needs can do more for people who are grieving than simply calling them and giving them a little verse you read over the phone. I'm not saying don't do that, but what is most helpful is taking initiative. Say, listen, I want to help you in this point of time. What are your top three most important needs right now?
Mm-hmm.
What you don't
Nice.
want to do, what you don't want to do is what we say in the church setting. If you need anything at all, just give me a call. Guess what? They're not going to call you.
They're not gonna call.
They're
They're not-
grieving. They're going through a very difficult time. They're not going to reach out. And if you know the person, like I know you since elementary school. So
Mhm.
if you are having a loss, I know I'm going to take your kids out, maybe
Mhm.
take maybe some time with your wife or time to process. I may bring you some food to your house. I may say, hey, you want to go ride bikes? I know you as my friend, so I know
Yes.
how to help you. And so if you
Yes.
know someone that's grieving and that's your friend, you know how to connect. You know what they need when they are hurting.
Mhm.
Give that. And if you don't know, ask them.
Right. Now, one thing you didn't mention, if I was going through brief, you talked about some things that friends can do, but as a grief counselor, as a grief therapist that's 8 week seminar, can you give us a little taste, a little bait on what someone can expect from that 8 week seminar that they can say, listen, I need this to help me through my situation?
Sure. So let me give you three kind of broad principles that we do, and I can't go through everything because of our time. But the first thing we do, Sean, is we really do what I call grief education, and
Mm-hmm.
we talk about what grief is, what grief is not. We
Mm-hmm.
talk about people looking for the stages of grief. They think grief is kind of this like process they go through that's like I'm at point one, point two, point three, and that's not factual at all, really. Okay, so we have like a common educational space where we can all have the same foundation and we all can speak the same language. That's important. Number
Got
two, which I find most helpful, is this: in a group setting, we don't just we share in big group and then we share in intimate group of one-on-one. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're in my group and there's 10 people. I may put you in a breakout room with a fellow griever. You all can have a one-on-one time, and over time you begin to bond, you begin to share, you begin to support each other in your grief spaces, and that's very, very helpful. And we do some other exercises. One exercise is a grief timeline where we look
Mm-hmm.
at all the losses that we've had in our lifetime, going back to our earliest memory, wrote on every single loss that we've had. And loss isn't just death. It can be loss of a job. It can be divorce. It can be moving from one city to another. It can be the death of a pet. So all these losses that we talked about in the educational space, we then look at a timeline, look at all the things we've lost. And we say, wow, I've been carrying around lots of stuff in my life. I never processed it. And then we
Mm-hmm.
begin the application of processing your loss, working on one specific loss that we can target during that time together. And then to give you some tools to help you process, right? If you say, hey, Kurt, come over, I'm gonna paint this room, and I bring a hammer, you're like, dude, why you bring a hammer? We're not painting, right? I need to bring some paint brushes, some rollers, because that's the right tools. And when you're going through grief, you need to have the right tools to process what you're going through.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, in closing, as we begin to land this plane, we've talked about the process. My final question is, what does healing look like when the loss never fully goes away?
So healing is just like grief is different for everybody. Healing is different for everybody. One of my go-tos for my groups is trying to lean in toward gratitude. And what I mean for gratitude isn't gratitude that someone has died, but
Mm-hmm.
gratitude for the relationship, gratitude for the time that we did share. And then we
Mm-hmm.
find moments of meaning that you can celebrate or point to that help you have even more gratitude. So let me share an example from my own story. We'll close out. So let's say again, talking to my dad, that was probably the most significant loss for me. As I went through my grief journey, most of us, when we're in grief, Sean, we're focused on those final moments of someone that we've lost.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I was trapped in my head, grieving like the hospital moment. He was at Emory in Atlanta. He was getting treatment. Things didn't go well. He was on the vent, and they took him off the ventilator.
Mm.
And for a while, I was stuck in that space. I was stuck in that space. I saw him take his last breath, and that's where I was for a long, long time. What grief counseling did for me, my healing was looking at not just that moment, but other moments in my life that were joyful, that were meaningful, right? And then begin to honor those moments. So one moment that I'll share with you, Sean, was um, my dad enjoyed fishing. That
Yes.
was He loved fishing, going out in the ocean, catching fish, bringing back the fish. He would clean his fish, fillet them, and fry them. We would eat the fish, have a wonderful time. So it may seem odd to some, but if I ever go fishing, man, I feel so close to my dad. I feel like we're having a moment because that memory is a good memory that helps me experience gratitude in the midst of my grief. So
Yes.
I'm still carrying that backpack, but it's not 100 pounds because I've now offset some of that weight with gratitude. So when I'm fishing and I pull in that little fish, I'm like, man, my dad would have a good time if he was here. Taking the fish off the hook, throwing it back because I don't eat the fish in these little ponds. I don't trust them. Throw it back, and I may catch them again. But that moment is so meaningful. It's emotional. It's almost spiritual because I feel like so close to my dad, and that for me is part of my healing. But for someone who's grieving, their healing may be different from mine. That's okay. But as they go through the process, they'll discover what's most important for them in their journey and how they can experience healing as they move forward. Because healing is an ongoing process in grief. It's not something that just stops. We
Mm-hmm.
continue healing, we continue growing, and we continue moving forward in this journey we call life. And for me, that is most important.
Absolutely. Now, if somebody wanted to sign up for your grief seminar, what's a number or website they can go to get information or to get registered for one of the seminars?
The best way is to reach out. I'm on Facebook, M Curtis Powell. You can direct message me there. I have an Instagram account called Grief Guy 007. You can reach out there. Shoot me a DM. We'll connect. We'll have a conversation to make sure what I offer is what you need. If what I need doesn't fit, I'll point you to somebody else. And that's usually how I get referrals.
Gotcha. Any last words you want to say in closing as we close out this program this evening?
Well, let me say two things. Number one, if you're grieving, if you're in grief, if you're processing your losses, don't grieve alone. Find some help, either with the faith community, seek out professional help if you need it, but don't just go through this process all by yourself. Number two, if you know someone that's grieving, if you want to support them, ask them how you can help them. Don't avoid the pain. Don't
Mm-hmm.
minimize what they feel. Validate it. Journey with them for the long haul, not just in the moment. So check on them down the road. those are things that are meaningful. People are going through grief. You would check in, say, "Hey, how you doing? I know it's 2 months out. I'm checking in with you. You want to go grab lunch, grab a coffee, whatever. Let's connect. How are you doing?" Connect with people. That's most important. If you
And
know someone's
listen, as you heard the chaplain indicate, grief is a very serious situation, but it's one that through proper care and process, it's one that we can keep.